You're like a brother to me, and I've always thought of you as a true lifelong friend. Television today feels very dark and heavy, and I believe shows should feel more like the first season or two of something special, not like the 7,000th episode where all the warmth is gone. That idea fits perfectly with the life and career of Pat Sajak, a man who spent decades bringing comfort and familiarity into people's homes. Pat Sajak hosted Wheel of Fortune for an incredible 41 years. Most people assumed he retired simply because he was tired or ready to slow down, but that was never the full story. In 2025, Pat finally spoke honestly about what really happened behind the scenes. He revealed a serious medical emergency that nearly cost him his life, admitted that he felt pressure and distance from network executives, and then shared something even more surprising. There was a detail about his final days on set that shocked even his own family. The true reason he stepped away from the show was far more complicated and emotional than anyone expected. Pat Sajak was born on October 26, 1946, in a working-class neighborhood of Chicago where money was always tight and the future felt uncertain. His father, Leonard Anthony Sajak, worked long, exhausting hours in a factory, while his mother, Joyce Helen Sajak, did her best to keep the household together in a small home that never quite felt big enough. Growing up in that environment exposed Pat to the harsh realities of poverty at a young age. Those early struggles shaped the way he viewed life, work, and success. His family name was originally Sajak, a Polish-American surname that people often mispronounced. Later, he shortened it to Sajak because he wanted people to say it correctly and because, deep down, he wanted to fit in. That simple change revealed a lot about who he was even as a young boy. He wanted to belong, he wanted to move forward, and he refused to let a difficult childhood decide the limits of his future. Those years slowly built resilience inside him, and that strength stayed with him for the rest of his life. Everything changed for Pat when he was just 17 years old. A teenage DJ contest aired live on WLS, one of Chicago's biggest radio stations. The contest was hosted by Dick Biondi, and Pat entered with nothing but hope, courage, and a calm, steady voice. Against the odds, he won. That victory placed him behind a real microphone for the very first time, giving him a Saturday slot where he played records while the city listened. The studio was small and simple, but something powerful sparked inside him. He played music, spoke to listeners, and felt the excitement that only broadcasting can bring. That short experience made it clear to him that radio was where he belonged. He graduated from Farragut High School in 1964 and worked various small jobs to help support his family. His birth name was Patrick Leonard Sajak, but during high school he officially changed it to Patrick Leonard Sajak to avoid constant mispronunciations that frustrated him. It might have looked like a minor change on paper, but it meant everything to him. It represented his desire to move ahead and be taken seriously. Those years were busy and exhausting, filled with school, work, and a constant push toward a better future. He had no shortcuts, no safety net, only determination, and that determination grew stronger every year. In 1964, Pat enrolled at Columbia College Chicago to study broadcasting. Money was still a problem, so he took a tough overnight job as a desk clerk at the Palmer House Hilton. Night after night, he sat behind the front desk, earning tips and saving every dollar he could. When most people slept, Pat practiced reading news scripts in his dorm room, often whispering lines until the sun came up. The routine was exhausting, but it taught him valuable lessons. He learned timing, control, and discipline. He learned how to sound calm and clear even when he was tired, and how to stay focused when the night felt endless. Those quiet hours helped shape the smooth, confident voice that millions of people would one day recognize on television. Behind all that hard work, Pat carried emotional pain from his childhood. His parents divorced when he was young, and his mother later remarried a man named Walter Ball. The changes in his family life brought instability, and Pat grew up longing for a sense of safety that never seemed to last. Those emotional cracks pushed him to search for balance and stability as an adult. He promised himself that he would not repeat the same struggles he had seen growing up. That promise drove him toward a career where he could build something solid and dependable. It made him careful about the choices he made and serious about his future. In 1966, Pat finally caught his first real professional break. He was hired by WEDC Radio for the midnight to 6 a.m. shift. He read news at a steady pace and earned only $1.25 an hour. The job did not pay much, but it was real broadcasting. He learned how to stay calm alone in the studio while the city slept. He learned how to connect with listeners he could not see and how to respect the responsibility of being on air. Each shift made him better and more confident. Then life took another unexpected turn. In 1967, at the age of 20, Pat was drafted into the United States Army. He began as a clerk typist and believed that role would keep him away from danger. However, someone noticed his background in radio, and in October 1968 he was transferred to the American Forces Vietnam Network in Saigon. From October 1968 to December 1969, Pat hosted the Dawn Buster morning show. More than 500,000 American troops listened as he played music, cracked jokes, and tried to make mornings feel lighter during a terrifying war. The phrase "Good Morning, Vietnam" had already become famous, but Pat carried that same spirit forward in his own way. His voice became a small but powerful bridge between home and the battlefield. He took over the Dawn Buster slot during a time when the effects of the Tet Offensive were still fresh. Rocket attacks were common, and danger was always close. Still, every morning Pat sat at the microphone and did his best to lift spirits. He played music by the Beatles and James Brown, keeping his tone friendly and warm even when fear filled the air. Although he was not on the front lines, he lived close enough to danger to feel its constant presence. At one point, the station itself was hit, forcing Pat and his coworkers to take cover. Those moments stayed with him forever and helped shape the calm, gentle presence he later brought to television. On December 25, 1969, Pat made a mistake that haunted him for years. President Richard Nixon delivered a Christmas message to the troops, and Pat was monitoring the broadcast through his headphones. Nixon paused during the speech, and Pat believed it was over. He switched back to music, not realizing the president had more to say. When Pat realized what had happened, he chose not to interrupt again. As a result, thousands of troops never heard the end of the president's message. Pat carried guilt over that moment for a long time. He later joked about cutting off the President of the United States, but the regret behind the humor was real. Life in Vietnam exposed Pat to things he never forgot. He saw wounded soldiers, heard heartbreaking stories, and lived under constant tension. Those experiences followed him long after he returned home. They shaped his deep dislike of high stress and influenced the slower, kinder pace he later brought to television. At the same time, Vietnam sharpened his sense of humor. Soldiers appreciated his jokes, his warmth, and the familiar sound of his voice. Many called him the voice of home, a title he carried with quiet pride. He left the Army in 1969 with an honorable discharge and a clear goal to remain in broadcasting. Still, the emotional echoes of war stayed with him, reminding him that even those who never fire a weapon can carry lasting scars. Pat's first job after the Army came in 1970 at WNBS Radio in Murray, Kentucky. He worked as a top 40 DJ and earned $200 a week. The pay was low, and life was simple. He shared an apartment with other broadcasters, ate cheap meals, and relied on friends for rides. The station was small, but Pat treated it as serious training. He improved his voice, learned how to read an audience, and gained confidence under pressure. Every week added to his experience. Soon after, he moved to WSM in Nashville, a station with a powerful signal that reached much of the eastern United States. Pat hosted the afternoon show from 2:30 to 5 p.m. That role introduced him to rising country music stars who would later become legends. He interviewed artists, studied their fans, and learned how to hold attention during slow hours. The job opened his eyes to larger markets and bigger opportunities. In 1974, Pat stepped into television for the first time. WSM-TV hired him to do voiceovers and brief newscasts during NBC's Today Show. His appearances were short, but they taught him how to face the camera with confidence. His calm delivery and natural presence stood out to executives. By 1975, he moved to the weekend weather desk, where his humor quickly won over viewers. He mixed light jokes with forecasts, creating a friendly, relatable style that audiences loved. That unique blend of warmth and wit would eventually define his entire career and lead him to become one of the most familiar faces in television history. The show had almost no money behind it, but it gave Pat the perfect space to experiment. He tested his timing, tried out jokes, and learned how to stay comfortable when things went off script. Because it was live and simple, he learned how to carry conversations naturally without forcing anything. The chemistry with his co-host worked, and little by little Pat shaped the calm, witty personality people would later recognize instantly. By 1977, he felt ready to take a bigger step. He left Nashville and moved to Los Angeles, joining KNBC-TV. Everything suddenly felt larger. The city was faster, the pressure was heavier, and the opportunities were far greater. He became a weather presenter in one of the biggest television markets on the West Coast. That move quietly set the foundation for everything that followed. Nashville had taught him how to survive rejection and stress, while Los Angeles gave him the stage to grow. Pat's Los Angeles chapter officially began in 1977 when he joined KNBC as a full-time weatherman, earning $50,000 a year, which was a solid salary for a local broadcaster at the time. At first, he stuck to traditional forecasts, but before long his personality started to shine through. He added playful comments, casually talking about daytime highs and nighttime lows in a way that felt friendly instead of stiff. Viewers loved it. What was usually a dull weather segment suddenly felt alive and warm. His relaxed style even helped inspire the title of Kenny Rogers' 1977 hit song Daytime Friends. Ratings improved, producers paid attention, and Pat slowly realized that the weather desk was not a limit but a doorway. Without rushing or forcing it, he stepped through that doorway with confidence. By 1980, he felt ready to try something new. That year, he auditioned for 2 game show pilots, Press Your Luck and Puzzlers. Neither show ever made it to air. On paper, both were failures. But the people working behind the scenes noticed something special about him. During the tapings, Pat kept contestants relaxed, made people laugh naturally, and showed a rhythm that could not be taught. Even though the pilots went nowhere, his name started quietly circulating among producers. Hollywood often works slowly, but moments like these build momentum, and eventually that momentum opens doors. Not everything went smoothly. In 1978, Pat was rejected for a sitcom pilot that never moved forward. Those early rejections hurt. He took whatever work he could find, recording commercials, doing voice work, and picking up small jobs to stay afloat. He saved carefully, and by 1981 his side work helped him build savings of about $100,000. That money was not just financial security. It gave him emotional stability. It allowed him to keep going while many others burned out chasing the same dream. He learned patience, resilience, and how to adjust without losing hope. Then came the meeting that almost never turned into anything. In 1981, Pat met Merv Griffin through contacts at KNBC. Griffin believed Pat was right for Wheel of Fortune after Chuck Woolery left. But NBC executive Fred Silverman rejected the idea, saying Pat felt too local. That decision could have ended everything. Instead, Griffin refused to move forward without him. He would not tape the show until the network agreed. Only after Silverman was fired did NBC finally approve Pat Sajak. It was the first time someone fought that hard for him, and it changed his life. Sometimes one person believing in you can become the turning point that defines everything. On December 28, 1981, Pat made his first appearance on Wheel of Fortune. He was clearly nervous. Watching those early episodes, you can hear his voice shake slightly, and the audience did not immediately connect with him. Ratings even dropped at first because viewers were still attached to Woolery. But Pat stayed patient. He relaxed, joked more, and slowly grew into the role. Week by week, the energy shifted. By the summer, he had earned enough trust to stabilize the show. That experience taught him an important lesson. A rough beginning does not mean a bad ending. The real transformation came in 1983 when Pat took over the nighttime syndicated version of Wheel of Fortune. At that time, the show aired in only 40% of the country and struggled with ratings. Everything changed when he teamed up with Vanna White. Their chemistry was natural, gentle, and easy. By January 1984, the show expanded to 70% of the country. Within a year, it reached 10 million viewers every day. By 1986, it became the highest-rated syndicated program in America. People tuned in not just for the game, but for the comfort. Pat and Vanna became part of nightly routines across the country, offering something familiar and warm at the end of the day. Those years were exhausting. From 1983 to 1989, Pat hosted both the daytime NBC version and the nighttime syndicated version. Some days he taped up to 5 episodes, and some weeks more than 20. The schedule was relentless. Still, he pushed through with the same calm energy. During that time, he earned about $250,000 a year, which was a large salary for a game show host then. His consistency, paired with Vanna's steady presence, turned Wheel of Fortune into a cultural tradition. In 1984, a moment changed how people viewed him. During a puzzle, a contestant buzzed in too early, and Pat snapped, telling them to wait their turn. The clip spread quickly, sparking debate across tabloids and talk shows. Some thought he went too far. Others found it honest and human. It became his first major controversy, but it also revealed his dry edge. That blunt humor became part of his identity, making him more relatable to audiences. That same year, Pat and Alex Trebek pulled off one of the most famous game show pranks ever. As an April Fool's joke, they swapped shows. Trebek hosted Wheel of Fortune, and Pat hosted Jeopardy! Pat stumbled through Jeopardy! Questions and even lost $5,000 on Wheel during the bit. Fans loved it. Even decades later, people still talk about the swap as one of the funniest moments in game show history. Pat's career continued to expand. In 1982, he made a brief appearance in Airplane 2 as a Buffalo newscaster. The role was small but memorable, and he earned $10,000 for the cameo. It proved his humor worked beyond game shows. By 1985, Wheel of Fortune reached another level, drawing more than 30 million viewers a day and beating Jeopardy! By a wide margin. Pat and Vanna became one of television's strongest duos, changing what people expected from a game show. Success did not protect him from risk. In 1989, he hosted the Pat Sajak Show on CBS, a late-night program meant to compete with Johnny Carson. CBS invested millions, booked big guests, and paid Pat $60,000 a week. But the ratings never matched expectations. After controversial moments and declining numbers, the show was canceled in 1990. Pat did not even appear in the final episode. It hurt deeply, but he kept moving forward. During those years, he appeared frequently on Super Password, showing a competitive side viewers did not expect. He even won $25,000 during one episode. In 1992, he surprised audiences again by appearing on The Commish, playing a psychologist involved in a murder case. It was an unusual role, but it worked. Fans enjoyed seeing him blend humor with seriousness. In 1997, he returned to April Fool's Fun, appearing as a contestant on Wheel of Fortune while Alex Trebek hosted. Pat won $50,000 and donated it to charity. Later that year, he hosted an episode of Jeopardy! These moments showed how playful he could be with his own legacy. In 2019, Pat quietly became the longest-running game show host in history, passing Bob Barker's record. Guinness World Records confirmed it after more than 35 years and over 7,000 episodes. The celebration felt meaningful because Vanna White had been beside him almost the entire time. Their partnership lasted longer than many marriages in Hollywood. Awards followed. He won multiple daytime Emmys and received a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011. His final Emmy win came in 2024, surprising many after a long gap. Even after stepping away from regular Wheel, he continued hosting Celebrity Wheel of Fortune until 2025. Outside television, he supported Hillsdale College, served as board chair, donated generously, and took strong public positions that reflected his beliefs. He also invested in baseball leagues, narrated holiday events at Disney, and voiced characters in specials, reminding people of his wide range. Not every moment was smooth. In 2023, he playfully put a contestant in a headlock on live TV, sparking debate online. In 2024, he told an excited contestant to shut up, causing another wave of criticism. Earlier, he apologized for mimicking a contestant's speech pattern. These moments showed how risky live television can be. Then came the moment that changed everything. In November 2019, Pat suffered a life-threatening intestinal blockage. Surgery saved him, but the experience shook him deeply. During recovery, he thought about everything he had missed with his family. That fear and regret stayed with him. When his daughter Maggie later joined Wheel, pride mixed with guilt. He realized how much time had passed. That realization pushed him to retire in 2023 after 41 seasons. His final episode aired in June 2024. As he thanked Vanna, it felt like the end of an era. In 2025, he admitted feeling pushed out because of his age and encouraged others to step away before it is too late. His story was never just about fame. It was about balance, regret, resilience, and knowing when to let go.